All right, we're out here on beautiful Table Rock Lake, and we're gonna go through a little video. I'm gonna give you a few tips and techniques on kind of how I pitch and flip. Not just this time of year, but for any time of year. We're gonna be targeting some shallow wood and see if we can't trigger a bite doing that. I'm gonna try to find us a lay down in here somewhere. So we're talking about pitching and flipping, especially like wood, shallow laydowns, things like that. You know, this can really apply to any time of the year. You're liable to pull up on a laydown and catch one 12 months out of the year, especially flipping one of my favorite baits, and that's a jig. One key thing in how to approach a laydown, those laydowns extend quite a ways off the bank a lot of times, and a lot of times towards the end is when they get the bushiest and the gnarliest. I will always start by pitching around the outside of that laydown first. The worst thing that I feel like you can do is pitch directly to the heart of the laydown, which is more often than not where the bite may come from, but then you hook a fish, you rip him through limbs, and you're disturbing the rest of the tree. So this one here, I can visually see a little bit of it. You probably can't on the camera, but you can see where it's coming off the bank. But I'm actually gonna pitch out here probably what appears to be about 20 feet. So I'm gonna start working the outside edge of it, and then I'm gonna slowly work my way into it. And you're gonna work your way in there very slow. Don't get in there and flip your trolling motor around when it's on 80% and prop wash the whole thing and basically just disturb the, oh, I thought I had a bite there. Got me a little jumpy. We got him. He's not very big, but we got him. I believe that was the culprit on the last cast there, is that little fat spotted bass there. What a beautiful little fish. Look how fat that little joker is. Not quite a keeper on this lake, but close. But hey, every jig bite's a fun bite. Now that bite actually came more towards the middle of that laydown, but the first 2 or 3 casts you saw I pitched around the outside of it. Again, I wanna make sure I cover this tree from every angle too. You don't wanna make 2 or 3 flips on a big old gnarly laydown and just keep on rolling down the bank. You wanna make sure you hit every little spot. But if you look at that laydown right now that we're staring at, you don't see any limbs sticking off that thing whatsoever, and it extends out in the water, and what you don't see is what's actually underneath the surface, which is like just a crazy, awesome bass habitat. You know, first of all, that's a hardwood. Second, it's got gnarly limbs out off the end of it, which creates a great ambush spot for these bass to sit in. But don't let it be deceiving just because that's all you see on the bank, because what's out here underneath the water is another world. We were talking about pitching and flipping and kind of the presentation. The natural way to do it is to grab the bait in your left hand and use your right arm to actually do the pitching and flipping if you're a right-hander. What I like to do is learn to flip and pitch left-handed. So I'll just keep, so the rod's in my left hand the entire time. I don't have to switch hands. It's a lot less stressful, and you're a lot more prepared in case, let's just say I've flipped a jig in there before, seen that line jump when it sinks a foot and you're not ready, you had to switch arms with the rod and all that stuff. So you're more on point and on go if you keep that rod in your left hand. See, if I pitch it out there right-handed, I've got to take it, switch hands, click the reel over, and then get ready. Sorry, we were rudely interrupted by a spotted bass. And I use a pretty simple, just kind of up and down retrieve with a jig. I like to bounce it off the bottom. I like to hop it. I'm looking for those aggressive fish. I really like to pitch it into the heart of a laydown, let that line get draped over 2 or 3 limbs and sit there and yo-yo it a few times too. You'd be surprised how many fish are sitting in some of these laydowns that don't bite on the first cast. But first few flips, typically I'll pitch it in there. I'll hop it through the limbs pretty aggressively, see if I can't get one to react. And then I'll really soak it in some of these other parts of the tree, especially the thicker parts. Got him. That's a good one too. We made 20, 25 pitches and flips of this laydown. That's why I say, you know, make sure you're thorough when you come up to these laydowns. Make sure you pick them apart. You know, you never know when where that fish is sitting and when he's ready to actually actively eat. That's a good, solid keeper largemouth. That's a good one. That's a beautiful fish. That's probably a 16-inch fish, 2 1/4 to 2.5 pounds. Old crawfish eater, AKA jig eater. That's what we're targeting. All right, so we've been pitching and flipping laydowns today. We've given you a few tips, techniques on how to do that, how to approach them, presentation. We even caught a couple fish doing it. I hope that's helped. But biggest thing is the setup that I'm using. I'm using a 7.6 heavy, okay, which I'm a taller guy. You know, I'm 6'1", so I like a longer rod. It just seems to handle a little bit better more for me. It gives me a little bit more leverage, things like that. If you're shorter, you may want to go down to a 7'4", 7'3". It just depends on what fits you the best. But again, it's a 7.6 heavy. Okay, I'm using a Carbon Light Bass Pro Shops reel. So one thing too that's important when I'm pitching and flipping you pitch in there, a fish hits it on the fall, say, or you know, it grabs it really quickly. The biggest thing is having a higher speed gear ratio reel. I like a 7-to-1 or 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. And the reason is I can pick up that line a lot quicker. And if you hit that fish on a hook set, a lot of times we've all seen this happen, whether you're up under a dock in a lay down, whatever, a bush, the fish will take off towards the boat out of that bush, tree, whatever it is, super fast. So keeping up with that fish, keeping a tight line on him, making sure the hook doesn't fall out, things like that, that's important in having a high speed reel. I'm using 17-pound P-line tactical fluorocarbon. I'm using a 1/2 ounce jig, just a little homemade jig. We're fishing in relatively clear water today, so I like, some of the colors I like are like a green pumpkin green pumpkin, something very natural. Just a little crawl imitation trailer there on the back. We're trying to imitate a crawdad. And again, the line size, 17-pound, because it's relatively clean water, but if it's dirtier, I'll go to 20-pound line, you know, get away with a little bit bigger line in dirtier water. But in this cleaner water, I like the lightest I can get away with, but safely without breaking a fish off. 17 seems to get me a few more bites in this cleaner water.